Well, good evening and welcome to the 2024 big event. How are we doing? Awesome. Man, I love the big event. We get dressed up, we come to this amazing venue, we get to celebrate everything that God has done in our ministry in the last year, and we get to look ahead at what's coming next. For those of you who were with us last year at the big event, you know that we celebrated 20 years of ministry at the Global Orphan Project. And we got to hear from Mike and Beth about the origins of Go Project, where it all started. And we heard from Mike about his first mission trip to Thailand and how a single interaction with one child changed everything and set him on this new course, so that 21 years later, here we all are. Isn't that amazing? And I'm sure if we were to go around the room and we all had a chance to share, we would probably hear a lot of similar stories about that one child that you met and I met that changed our lives, that helped us see the world in a new light. And that's also why we're here, because we are united in the desire to serve children. And that's pretty cool. So last year, we looked back 20 years at the origins of Go Project. Tonight, we're going to look back at a few key moments in our history, but tonight is really about looking forward. What's coming next? What does the next 20 years of ministry look like at the Global Orphan Project? But before we get there, I want to acknowledge two things. First thing is you. Thank you. Truly, truly thank you. We can't do this without you. All of the children that we serve here in the United States, the children that we serve around the world, the jobs that we've created through Goex, none of this happens without you. So thank you, honestly, on behalf of all of the kids that we serve and our entire team at Go Project, thank you. Second thing I want to acknowledge is we feel like we owe you some answers. Every year you come out and you're so gracious and you're so supportive of what we do, and your generosity propels us into the next year. But we also know that a lot of the times you leave here still confused about what we do. It's a confusing story. I mean, what does a t-shirt company and a technology company and an international childcare ministry have in common? It feels kind of disjointed. And we've heard you. It's like, is there a strategy here, or are you just sort of shooting from the hip? So we acknowledge that we haven't done the best job of creating clarity around who Go Project is and how this all ties together. So at the top of the night, we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to hopefully create some clarity. Does that sound good? Great. All right. That was a big woo. That was good. The Global Orphan Project exists to break the orphan cycle through the power of community, commerce, and the love of Jesus. Or to put it simply, the Global Orphan Project exists to break the orphan cycle. This is our mission statement. This is what we exist for. Now, most of us probably don't know this, but in 2009, something happened in our ministry that radically challenged how we view this mission statement, and we've never talked about it. Something happened in 2009, probably the most pivotal moment in our ministry history, and we've never talked about it. It's the simplest idea on earth. It ties everything that we do together, and we've never talked about it. So tonight, let's talk about it. So in 2009, Mike, our co-founder, and Joe Knittig, our CEO, were visiting one of our international church partners. And the reason for their visit was that this church was throwing a huge celebration. They're celebrating their anniversary. So just imagine with me for a minute. This church, like a lot of our churches in 2009, they had an orphanage, they had a school, they had a vibrant church. They were kind of a center for community activity. And so, of course, during this celebration, there's kids from the orphanage there's kids from the school there. The whole community has come out to celebrate. And in the middle of all of this is Mike and Joe. And I'm sure they're blending in, right? But they're in the middle of this celebration, having a great time. And at some point, Mike peers through the crowd and he sees in the back of the church, the doors are open, and there's a woman standing holding a child. And they lock eyes for a moment. And for whatever reason, Mike feels compelled toward this woman. And he notices she's the only one not celebrating. She's standing on the outside of the church looking in. And so Mike just can't take his eyes off of her. And finally he turns to the pastor and he says, "Pastor, do you know who this woman is?" And he says, "Well, no, but I'll go find out." So the pastor runs over and Mike can see that there's a conversation happening, through this celebration. He can see that the pastor is trying to invite her in, but she won't budge. So the pastor, after a few minutes, comes back to Mike and he says, "Mr. Mike, I tried to invite her in, but she didn't want to come. She's filled with a lot of shame. She told me, she said, you are all good people. I see what you do for the kids in the orphanage. I see what you do for the community. But me, I don't belong here. I can barely take care of my own kids." And then she says words that just dropped a bomb on our ministry. She said, "In fact, I wish I was dead, because then my kids could come and live here with you good people." And these words just sink into Mike's heart. And he's wrestling with this. In the middle of this celebration, Mike is having this crisis. And he turns to the pastor and he says, "Pastor, how many kids here came from a family like that?" And the pastor says, "Many. There's lots of families who can't care for their kids, and so they bring them here and they drop them off." And when Mike looks up, the woman's gone. And as Mike is sitting there wrestling with this, he realizes, our mission is to break the orphan cycle. And in this instance, we missed it. In this instance, we didn't break the orphan cycle. You could say we perpetuated it. We created a scenario where a mom genuinely believed that her kids would be better off if she was dead. And so this idea just wrecked Mike. And we started wrestling with it. And we realized if we want to make a meaningful impact in breaking the orphan cycle, it's going to take more than just waiting for families to disintegrate and then catching their kids as they sort of tumble towards oblivion. It's going to take more than that. We're going to have to go upstream and find ways to strengthen families before they collapse. If we're serious about breaking the orphan cycle, we have to figure this out. We have to figure out how to strengthen families. And so we started wrestling with this and thinking about it, and we realized, parents want to take care of their kids, large in part, but in the places that we work, in some of these under-resourced parts of the world, there's just a lack of jobs. What we need is jobs. And so in 2012, we launched Goex, a living wage fair trade apparel company with manufacturing facilities in Haiti and screen printing and distribution happening out of Kansas City, with the sole purpose of creating jobs, because we believe the best form of orphan prevention is a job. Goex's mission is to strengthen families through the dignity of work. That's why Goex exists, to create jobs so that people can care for their families. So people have asked us a lot of the time, why the apparel industry? Of all the businesses you could have launched, why the apparel industry? That's a tough one. And it is. But the reality is we know that the apparel industry is one of the worst offenders when it comes to perpetuating cycles of poverty and cycles of orphans. Take a look at this statistic. Of the 200 million apparel workers around the world, less than 2% earn a living wage. Let me rephrase that, okay? Of the 200 million apparel workers globally, 98% of them can't afford to cover their family's basic needs. The apparel industry is offender number one. So Goex exists to create jobs, but it's also a line that we've drawn in the sand to say it is possible to break the orphan cycle through commerce. It's possible to break the orphan cycle in the apparel industry. Goex not only creates jobs, it's a beacon that we hold up to the world to say it doesn't have to be this way. It's possible through business to break the orphan cycle. All of this out of the mission to strengthen families, breaking the orphan cycle through strengthening families, through the dignity of work. So a few years later, we realized we had been driving past kids in our own backyard to get on planes and fly overseas and help kids in other countries. And so we realized it's time for us to grow home. We've got to do something for the kids here in the United States. So in 2015, we launched CarePortal, a connecting technology that connects kids and families in crisis to a care-sharing network who can help through the local church. Why technology? Well, if you know anything about child protective services, you know that it's massively fragmented, right? This happens agency by agency, county by county, state by state, and most often, these systems they use don't talk to each other. So if there's a caseworker working with a family that's on the brink of collapse, they have a limited way of sharing those needs. CarePortal is an elegant solution. It's a portal where vetted needs from caseworkers can be uploaded on behalf of the most vulnerable families on their caseloads, and churches, with the support of their community, can step in and help. That's what CarePortal is, born out of the same idea to strengthen families. And it's grown. CarePortal is currently active in 35 states and 1 Canadian province, and we've served over 250,000 children since its inception. That's pretty awesome. So what we've discovered is that the Global Orphan Project is a parent company that innovates solutions that attack family breakdown. That's who we are. We didn't realize it when we started, but what we've discovered about ourselves is that Go Project is a parent organization. We incubate, we launch, we support initiatives that attack family breakdown. Family breakdown is a complicated thing. There's no silver bullet. So if we're going to make a meaningful impact in breaking the orphan cycle, we've got to attack this from multiple angles. So that's why we do this. Goex through the job angle, CarePortal through connecting churches with government agencies. So what have we been doing internationally this whole time? 2009 was a long time ago, right? Well, we've been trying some stuff. I promise we've been trying stuff. We realized that we really needed to research and discover what was at the root of all of this family breakdown. And so we listened to our church partners, we listened to the families that the kids came from, and we discovered that, a lot of the time kids end up in an orphanage because their parents can't afford to cover their school tuition. So we thought, okay, well, let's subsidize education, make it affordable to the whole community. And we did that. And it had some limited success. And then we thought, well, maybe we can find a tool that can help us identify the most vulnerable families in a community, and we can come around them with some housing support or food subsidy or whatever. And so we did that. And again, we had some limited success. But we hadn't found the thing that would actually make a meaningful impact, a significant impact in breaking the orphan cycle. We hadn't found the thing that we could scale globally. And we realized that, most families break down because of issues stemming from poverty. It's not usually the death of parents. It's usually some issues stemming from poverty. So if we want to be good at this, if we want to be really good at breaking the orphan cycle, we need to become experts in poverty alleviation. So we did a lot of research, and we found this amazing study from the early 2000s that was done by World Bank. They were trying to evaluate all of their poverty alleviation mechanisms, and they discovered that mostly they weren't working. So they launched one of the biggest studies into the root causes of poverty of all time. And what they did, pretty brilliantly, was they said, let's ask the poor themselves how they define poverty. We've defined it mostly through a financial lens. Let's ask them how they define it. And what they discovered changed everything. They found that, in the definition of poverty, lack of financial means was certainly high on the list. But of equal importance, oftentimes more so, was this idea that being poor rips people's dignity away from them. It causes you to feel like you don't belong in society. It causes you to feel ostracized and marginalized. Just like that woman in 2009 standing on the outside looking in. So we realized if we really want to make a meaningful impact, it's not enough to just do some school subsidy. It's not enough to do some housing subsidy or food subsidy. If you do that, you'll have some nominal impact. But unless we attack the root issue of restoring dignity, restoring community, we're never really going to get there. We're never going to have lasting impact. So this is not an easy thing to do. First you got to tackle financial issues, then you got to tackle issues of dignity, self-identity. So our international teams around the world, they started wrestling with this and they started experimenting with different things. And two amazing leaders from our Go Africa team, Dr. Alison Barreth and Rose Canyon-Yuzi, a Congolese woman who was living in Uganda, had been trying for years to figure this out. And what they had done was they said, okay, let's take the best that the world has to offer on these poverty alleviation tools. So let's take the best in microfinance and saving circles and the best in health and hygiene, and let's learn about asset-based community development, and let's figure out how we can do this through the local church so the church wraps around families as they're being strengthened, and they know that they're not alone, they're part of a community, and they devised this plan, and it was brilliant and it was local. And they said, we just need a good partner to pilot it with. And then in 2017, Rose Canyon-Yuzi got a call on her cell phone from a small church in a town called Kafunjo, Uganda. No one's ever heard of Kafunjo. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's no government aid office there. There's no clinic there. They are at the end of the earth. They're pretty much on their own. And they called Rose, and Rose picks up her cell phone and they say, Rose, we've heard about the work that you do with Go Africa. We need your help. We are drowning in poverty. We have dozens of families on the brink of family breakdown. Will you please come and help us? So Rose and Allison have a quick conversation, and they get back to the leaders of the Kafunjo church. And Rose says, okay, yes, we will come, but let me make it clear. We are not bringing any aid. We're not even bringing any solutions. But we will come and we will stay with you until we figure this out. So they moved down to Kafunjo. It's about 8 hours in a very bumpy car ride from their homes. And they got there, and Rose rented a house. And for the next 3 months, she lived in Kafunjo, figuring this out with the church. She taught the church how to organize a leadership team, then taught them how to organize the assets of the church and then the assets of the community. Then she taught them how to identify categorically the specific needs that the families in their community have so that they know the areas that a family is doing well in and where they're struggling. And now, based on that data, the church has a roadmap. You know the specific things you need to do to make a family flourish. And so after a few months of working with the church finally said, you know what, we can do this. We can do this. We don't need outside help. We can do this right here. So they piloted their first family strengthening program. They started with 20 families. And what they did right out of the gate, the first thing was they said, okay, we want you to sit down and write out what your dream is. Like to you, what would make the difference? What is the thing that if you achieved it, you'd say, you know, I'm no longer poor. I did this. And what they came up with was really humble stuff. It was stuff like, I just want to be able to send my kids to school. And it was, you know, if I just owned a couple of goats, I could turn that into a business. I'd be on my way. If I could just earn enough to buy a couple of goats, I could make it work. For others, it was, you know, my house is in disrepair, and it shames me when people come to my house and they see me living this way. If I could just fix my roof, if I could patch the walls, then when people could come over, I would take pride in my home. Really humble stuff. In the first year of launching this program, every single participant achieved their dream. Every single one. Now just imagine, this was their biggest dream. This was the thing that they said, if I can do this, I would no longer consider myself poor. Imagine for you, if you wrote on a piece of paper tonight, what is your biggest dream? And 1 year from now, through your own hard work, you achieve that dream. What would that do for you? Imagine what it did for these folks. The mental unlock that created. So what did they do? They started dreaming bigger. And they started dreaming bigger. And the church wrapped around them. And as they came into the church, they held themselves a little bit higher. They were esteemed members of the community. Then they started teaching their neighbors. And their neighbors started teaching their neighbors these principles. And then Rose got a call from a church a few miles down the road. Said, Rose, we heard what you did with the church at Kafunjo. Will you come to our church? And Rose said, sure. So she moved over there and she taught it to a bunch of churches in that community. Then she moved to central Uganda, taught it to a dozen churches there. Then northern Uganda, more churches there. Then she took it to her hometown in Congo and started launching family strengthening programs in refugee camps. And they worked in amazing ways. We heard about this in the States and we're like, we can't believe this. There's family strengthening programs happening everywhere. Maybe we should take our leaders from Haiti and India and Lebanon and send them to Uganda to learn this. So that's what we did. We didn't send them to Duke University to do their poverty alleviation program. You know where we sent them? Kafunjo, Uganda. And they met with the leaders of Kafunjo, and they learned from the leaders of Kafunjo, this little church in the middle of nowhere, how to do family strengthening. And they took it to Haiti and India and Lebanon. And we launched more churches in Haiti. We launched these programs all over India. We launched them in Lebanon. It was amazing. This thing was growing like crazy. And we said, you know what? We got to call it something. What are we going to call it? Everyone's calling it something different. So we decided we're going to call it Strong Family. You know, we've learned in our ministry, I don't know why we still do this, but we still do this, right? When we go into a boardroom in the States and we start like whiteboarding solutions to the challenges that we're facing, the solutions we come up with are like, meh, they're okay, right? We have some limited success. But when we humble ourselves and we listen to what God is doing in the lowliest of places, through the lowliest of people. If we humble ourselves to recognize there's treasure down there, if we would just go look and listen, then we unlock the power of what God has for us and God has for these communities. And that's what we learned. And it spread, and it spread, and it spread. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, check this out. So, Go Project was founded in 2003, and Rose got a phone call from the Kifunjo Church in 2017, right? So it's 14 years from 2003 to 2017. From 2003 to 2017, we had grown our international impact to serving 6,145 children around the world. That's great. Praise the Lord. That's amazing. 6,000 kids served in the first 14 years of our ministry. Now let's take a look at what happened in the 5 years after Rose got that call from Kifunjo, Uganda. So we launched our first Strong Family program in Kifunjo with 20 families in 2017. In the next 5 years, we went to 22,417 children served. The first 14 years, 6,100 kids. That's wonderful. The next 5, 22,417 kids. Now let's look at what happened from 2022 to today, 2024. We're not even done with 2024. So we're like a year and a half and a bit. From 2022 to 2024, we went from 22,417 children served to 46,394 kids. In a year and a half, we doubled the number of kids we were serving. The first 14 years of ministry, 6,100 kids. In half that time since, we've added 40,000 more kids to who we serve globally. And the best part about this, none of these kids have a clue who the Global Orphan Project is. They don't have a clue. What they know is that every day their parents get up and they go to work with the local church. And their parents know that when they were in need, the church was there. No one has a clue who Go Project is. And that's just the way we want it. So I do want to be clear. We have done a massive amount of work in strengthening families, but we are not forgetting the kids whose family units have disintegrated. We are not walking off the field and leaving them behind. They are still a central part of who we are and what we do. It looks different. It looks a lot more like foster care and kinship care, some very, very small family-style homes, but we are still committed to those kids. However, if we want to break the orphan cycle, this is what it's going to take. We have to strengthen families. 46,000 kids is great. But you know, in 2009, we met a woman who radically transformed our ministry. Because of that interaction, we ended up launching Goex. We launched CarePortal. We've launched Strong Family. And we did nothing for her. We weren't ready. And I never met her. But you know, as I was preparing for tonight, and I knew I was going to tell her story, I couldn't help but wonder. You know, I wonder where she is, and I wonder where her kids are. And, you know, I've had to just release that to the Lord. I don't know. I don't know the outcome, and I never will. But as I was kind of wrestling with this, I took a trip to Uganda about a month ago with some members of our team. And I met another single mom while I was there. And in some ways, her story bears some similarities to this lady we met in 2009. And I'd like to share her story with you now.
You know, the whole purpose of Strong Family is to find the most vulnerable families and wrap around them with support from the church and help them get to a place to where they can sustain themselves. The point here is to stop families from falling apart, to stop kids from ending up homeless or in orphanages or who knows where. That's the point. And so some of the stories we hear are pretty hard. And today I met a single mom named Betty. And Betty has 5 kids. And she was in an incredibly abusive relationship for years. And when her children were very small, she made a courageous but brutal decision to leave her abusive husband and to move back with her parents, knowing that as a single mom with 5 kids, she was essentially stacking the odds massively against her. And even though she had a place to live, she really wasn't welcome there. And this went on for 10 years. And as she told us, each year got worse than the year before. And she was careening towards total family breakdown. But yet the church had eyes on her. The church saw her, knew her story. Somehow they knew, and they invited her to a Strong Family meeting. When she arrived at that meeting, she quickly discovered a community of people who were also just trying to make it, just trying to survive. And that gave her a little bit of encouragement and just a little bit of hope. So she came back. And she came back. And over time, she started to learn how to farm the small piece of land that she had. She started to learn how to manage her savings a little bit better. She started to learn the importance of hygiene and proper nutrition, which helped her kids remain healthy. And she started incrementally improving. It's hard. And she's not out of the battle yet. She's been doing this now for 1.5 years, but she's making it. And in her words, Strong Family made the difference between whether her family would have made it or not. And for a single mom with 5 kids, success just kind of looks like a little bit of peace, a little bit of hope, a little bit of love, and just enough to get by. And with the community of the church wrapping around her, she now carries herself a little bit taller. She's a respected member of her community. She helps out at the church, volunteers all the time. That transformation, outwardly, it's hard to kind of gauge, but inwardly, what changed in her heart, how she feels about herself, has radically changed and made the difference in how she sees her future. So 1.5 years ago, she wrote on a piece of paper what her dream was, and there it is. Her dream was to afford to buy a goat. And within the first year of being a part of Strong Family, she achieved her dream. And now she has a new dream. Her new dream is to build a semi-permanent home for her family to live in, so they don't have to continue living in a mud hut with a thatched roof. And she's going to achieve that goal. She knows it. She's no longer pushed to the margins of society. She's part of society. She's part of a community. She knows that she belongs, and that's worth it. That's what success looks like. We don't expect her kids to all grow up and become doctors and lawyers. We just want them to be a family. That's the goal, and she did it. And I'm so proud of her, and I'm so thankful for the local church and how they equipped her to do this. It's amazing.
You know, there are Bettys in every community. They're in Cafunjo, they're in Kansas City, they're in Possum Trot, Texas. And we have an opportunity to do something about it. We occupy a very unique moment in history. The church is more widespread than ever before. While there's a Betty in every community, there's also a local church. We also live in a day and age where technology has the ability to connect churches to struggling families and deploy information widely across the world. What would it look like if we could take everything that we've learned from strengthening families through the dignity of work, everything we've learned about strengthening families through community development through the local church, and everything that we've learned about leveraging technology to connect all the dots, and just gave it away? For the last few years, we've been developing the Strong Family app. It's a technology platform that's available to anyone on earth who has a smartphone. And it's downloadable in a local language. So if you speak Spanish, you can download it in Spanish. You speak Haitian Creole, you can get it in Haitian Creole. Specifically so that you can launch your own Strong Family program through your own church without needing a partnership with Go Project. And alongside this app, we have an online training course where all of the lessons and guides that you need to do this are available to you. What would the world look like if we could make this accessible everywhere? How many Bettys would we serve? How different would it have looked for that woman back in 2009 if we were ready, if that church was equipped? Here we are with this opportunity, and we need your help. Our goal over the next few years is to launch Strong Family globally. Our goal is that in early 2025, next year, to make this accessible and ready for any church on earth. And we need your help. That's why you're here tonight, and that is our ask. We want you to help us not only continue to expand our own network of churches to serve more children, but also to make this available. The future of Go Project doesn't look like 46,000 children served, or 50,000, or 100, or 500. It looks like millions upon millions upon millions of children served if we can take what we've learned and give it away. Will you join us?